Okay, so in continuation of our discussion about legal disputes in KM based systems, we have seen that who is going to be held responsible for liability or negligence. It could be the knowledge developers or the users or even the experts also, if he has not transferred the copyright. Okay. Now, if your developer is person from the organization, okay, then he could also be involved in negligence process. Okay. And if it is a product, okay, then it is very difficult to prove negligence on the part of the developer, right. And if you are knowledge based service is in a service contract, then you have to see that the law of the state will apply. Depending upon the law, you are going to be either held responsible, and then the clauses of strict liability would be applied or negligence would be applied. Okay. Then there could be certain cases involving warranties also, which is to be shown that who is going to be at fault. For example, if you purchased a product and you have damaged it, okay, even during the warranties, even the organization may not be held responsible, because it is very clearly written on the product that if you are going to create any kind of damage by your activities, then the organization may not be responsible for the product. But if there is anything wrong with the product, okay, if it is not functioning properly even after you have purchased it and it is covered by the warranty, then the organization is going to either replace it or repair it free of cost. So, these are some of the issues related to warranties, right. Now, there could be other issues related to web linking domain, web linking and domain names, right. Okay. Because in e-commerce, basically unique knowledge about a product or a company as a service, that because e-commerce is done through websites, right. And then these e-commerce companies create hyperlinks, and the kind of infrastructure that they use is internet. So, what happens? Suppose you are going to buy a product, you visit a website of an e-commerce, say Flipkart. Okay. So, once you visit the website of the Flipkart, what happens? It automatically takes you to different kind of products categories. So, what you do, depending upon your requirement, you are going to click on that, and then it takes you to another area. So, this is connected through hyperlinks. Okay. So, you are jumping from one page to another page. Okay. Whether it is going to create any legal issues or not, okay. Because if you are going to link your site with certain issues which is owned by other people, then there could be a legal problem. But if it is not, then it may not be there, right. And that is why if you look at e-commerce websites, when what they do, basically they try to create it in such a way, so that this hyperlink is taking you to a product, and based on your specification you look at the product. So, you are not going to the original sellers, but you are going to order the product to the e-commerce site, say Flipkart, and Flipkart is going to negotiate and has a contract with another site which is going to sell, or a seller which is going to sell you the product, right. Similarly, there could be other issue related to the referencing. Okay. Suppose you are going to give reference of a linked site without any permission of the site owner, then it is liable to legal actions. Similarly, if you are going to retrieve and download any information from the website or internet, are using it without reference or permission, then again it becomes a legal issue. Or if you are using the company's trademark illegally, then again it is a problem, and you could be held liable for that, and strict legal actions may be taken against you. Okay. So, these are some of the issues related to web linking and domain name. Also issues are there, because you know that domain name actually represents the company's intellectual capital. Okay. And you know that two companies cannot have the same domain name. Okay. If the two companies have the same domain name, that could be a legal dispute, that who is actual owner of the domain, right. And that is why you will find that each organization has its own domain name, and it is actually managed by Internet, that is Internet Network Information Center, which basically manages the internet and domain names on a first come first serve basis. So, if one domain name has been allotted to one particular company, others cannot make use it, right, because domain name and trademarks are very much related. Okay. And make sure that your domain name does not infringe any trademark. Okay. Similarly, you also may make sure that your domain name is registered, okay, with the internet provider. Okay. You secure it, go for registration your domain name with the internet information center, and also get permission before linking to other websites to avoid liabilities issues. Okay, it is very, very important. For example, suppose you are using LinkedIn, it is a domain name, it has its own trademark. Okay. So, people post their things and they also give link. Okay. So, they must get permission from their organization to create a link in the LinkedIn for that particular site, which will take you from LinkedIn to another website. Okay. Because otherwise, there could be issues, conflict, legal issues may be there. Another important issue is related to the malpractices, which is very, very common. Okay. So, what kind of malpractices happens? Okay. Malpractices are less legal and more ethical in nature, because you know that is where you are going to apply certain, you are not very careful, you are going to apply certain things, okay, both the experts, the knowledge developers, and because of which you know that there are certain defects in the system, okay, which cannot be used properly. Okay. And make sure that when you are going to develop knowledge and you are going to put it in the system, as a developer and expert, make sure that no kind of malpractices are allowed, of either is related to use or design or the defect of the system. Okay. So far, there is no standardization certification for knowledge developers, and that is why sometimes they are saved out of liability and strict action. Okay. Because if you are a certified developer, then you could be held responsible if you are going to design a system which is defective in nature. Okay. Right. So, these kind of malpractices are adopted. Now, after discussing about the legal factor, next thing that we are going to discuss is about the ethical factor. Okay. That is basically concerned with the use of knowledge or the knowledge management systems. Now, if you look at ethics in general, basically there are a lot of issues that may come up related to ethics. Some of the concepts which are related with ethics include like fairness, justice, equity, honesty, trustworthiness, equality. Okay. But most of these concepts are very, very subjective in their approach. For example, fairness is in one context may not be fairness in another context. Okay. Even the principles of justice vary from culture, from one culture to another culture, from one context to another context. Right. Equity means different things to different people. Okay. Now, when it is very difficult to conceptually define what is honesty. Okay. What we are talking about is the level of honesty. So, it is very, very subjective in nature. Right. Similarly, when we talk about trustworthiness, what is trustworthiness? It is based on the relationship of the two people, who is going to trust on whom, right. But when it comes to knowledge management, it is to be applied that whether you are going to have trust on the system, whether the experts are going to have trust on the knowledge developer, because that is very, very important for sharing the knowledge. So, that his tacit knowledge is transformed into explicit knowledge, right. Now, you also need to apply the principles of equality. Equality means that whether access of knowledge is equally available to anyone who requires it to use, right. But if you look at these terms, they are very, very subjective in the assessments, but they are related to ethics. Now, comes to another question that comes into mind is what is unethical behavior in context of the organizations. Okay. Like if you are going for stealing, lying, cheating, or backing out, if you have given certain commitments, you are coming out of it, right. Then these are some of the ethical descriptions, right. It means that you are not ethical in your approach or behavior, but this is very, very general in context, right. Now, if you look at this figure, it talks about whether it is ethical or not, especially moral and amoral, okay, or whether it is legal or illegal. Now, if you look at this on this 4 quadrant, on one side you have legal, on the other side you have illegal, right. Similarly, you are also have moral and immoral. Now, if you look at this A, B, C, D, okay, something which could be called as illegal as well as immoral, in like when you are going to rob a bank, you go for false reporting about your donations and these kind of things. right. Similarly, it could be immoral, but it is legal. For example, restricting immigration. You know that some of the developed countries have gone for putting certain restrictions to immigrations, right, because though it may be legal, but it may not be legal, because it does not allow free movement of the people, right. Though it could be immoral, but it is legal, because depending on the context of the country, you go for restricting immigrations to your country, right. Now, move from there to something that is both legal as well as moral ethical. For example, you are giving donations for a good cause or a charity, right. Now, something that could be moral, but not legal, right. For example, if you have rescued hostages from a foreign country, it could not be, it may not be legal, because that law does not permit without visa to enter into a country, but it is legal, it is more ethical, because if you do not rescue those hostages, they are likely to die, because you know that recent crisis, lot of people are moving from one country to another countries, okay, from many Arab countries, Syrian countries, that side of country are moving to Europe now. Okay. You must have heard about certain conditions where people have drowned, okay. The boats have capsized, lot of people have died, okay. They have not been allowed to immigrate. Similarly, there have been a lot of human efforts where the hostages or these immigrants have been rescued and they have been given shelter. So, though it is it may not be legal, but at the same time you call it moral. So, but it is in more general context. Now, we will see that how it is applied in the context of knowledge management. Okay. So, what we are going to say here is that yes, knowledgeable people are also expected to follow ethical behavior, okay, and then they are going to consider certain parameters to see that their decisions are more ethical in nature, right. Now, whether it is fairly reasonable and whether your conscience allowed for it or not, okay. First thing, that is the nature and essence of that act. If you are using the knowledge, whether it is fair and reasonable. The next question that whether you are going to ask is, what would the consequences of that particular action on the parties that is involved, right. Now, apart from the consequences on the parties, you also look at the long term consequences of your action or not doing any action on the part of the organization or the society. So, if you look at this is a decision cycle which talks about the act or the intentions to start with, then you evaluate those alternatives, take a particular decision or action, then you also measure the outcome or the consequences of that particular action, okay. Then you go for a human filter, get the feedback, and then based on this feedback, and then next time you are going to act again, right. So, your act or intentions are evaluated, and then you see that which act or the decision has given good results, and whether you are going to continue with that or not. For example, one of your act or intentions have not resulted in good results, you get the feedback, so you drop it. So, if you look at ethical decisions, okay, when you have to make ethical decisions, you have to see what are the options that is available to you and which decision you are going to take, and make sure that it is more ethical in nature, and then you look at the consequences, get the feedback. If the feedback is right, act on it, continue with that one. If it is not, then you leave out. So, that is what ethical decisions are. Then what are the major threats to ethics today? Networks, computers, you heard a lot about it today, okay. Starting with hacking, cyber crimes, security, privacy, these are the issues which are associated with this, okay. Nowadays, you have sophisticated telecommunication routers which could be used for that, okay. You have massive distributed databases which are subject to theft, and these kind of things are there, okay. And then whether you allow people to have information and knowledge or not, okay. And then how transparent is when you are going to develop a software, the issue of transparency comes into the picture. So, what we are going to discuss one by one is what kind of threats are created in terms of ethics when it comes to knowledge management system, because all of them are vulnerable to this. Another issue is that you need to improve the ethical climate of the organization, okay. When I am talking about ethical climate, is that you need to inculcate a culture, a value system in the organization, so that people behave ethically. That is very, very important, and it is on the part of the management to ensure that an ethical climate is created. Okay. So, what are the things that need to be done? Okay. It is very, very important to have this resource and system in place, so that you ensure that people are not going to act unethically, right, and for that you require top management support, right. For example, by nature people could engage in certain unethical behavior. So, how top management is going to deter them? Okay. I give one example. Say for example, in the revenue department and a police department, okay, you expect them to unethical when you go to fire an FIR, or you ask them for certain things to do, and then they ask for certain favors, okay, maybe monetary or non-monetary. Then how are you going to handle this issue? So, if you have resources, what you can do? You can go for certain observations on a regular basis, on a real time basis. Okay. You can go for CCTV cameras, which can provide you real time observations how people are behaving, and whether people are engaging in ethical behavior or not. But for that what you require is commitment and support from the top management, and resources are required. That is basically policing. That is one approach that could be used to engage and ensure that people are ethical in their behavior and they engage themselves ethically in their activities. That is one thing. Second thing is that you that is more implied or behavioral, where you people voluntarily follow certain code of ethics. So, what you do? You develop certain code of ethics, you communicate to the people what to do, what not to do, what kind of things are desirable, what are the things which are not desirable at the workplace, and then you communicate it to the people. Say for example, you know that the government has come out with the Sexual Harassment Act. Okay. So, you must communicate every people that what kind of activity comes under sexual harassment. So, people must be communicated, right. Otherwise, if an act is found which is covered under the purview of the Sexual Harassment Act, then you are liable for legal actions. Okay. But before that, you need to communicate and develop a code of ethics for these kind of activities, right. Then you also need to develop these kind of orientations in the people through training and development activities, okay, so that they can internalize and they can understand what is ethical and what is not ethical. Okay. And similarly, you need to motivate people, and you also tell them and convince that what are the benefits of being honest and not losing their integrity, because integrity and honesty is something that is very, very important. Okay. And it is very, very important for a lot of jobs. For example, if you are working in a call center, the first and foremost required, apart from your technical knowledge, is your honesty and integrity. Otherwise, it could be ethical issues. For example, you are engaged in data theft and these kind of things, then what will happen? The company is going to lose its advantage. For example, you are working in defense. Okay. So, what matters most is your honesty and integrity. So, it is expected to create a climate and culture in the organization through training and development activities, make them understand, communicate them, so they understand the role of ethics in the organization. Okay. And if anybody is engaging in any kind of unethical behavior, it is the responsibility of the management to deal it severely and promptly. So, you need to take immediate actions if any unethical behavior is reported by the people, okay. Whether it is on the part of the negligence or otherwise, also you make sure that if any person is making any kind of unethical behavior, it is reported and due action is taken immediately. Okay. If you are going to take prompt and due action immediately, then it gives a message to others, okay, that if they are going to indulge in these kind of activities, then there may be a problem, and that is why it is expected that they are not going to engage themselves in unethical activities. So, where to start to when it comes to improving ethical climate in the organization? Okay. Either you start from the bottom or you start from the top, right. So, you need to inculcate ethical behavior, okay, with the support of the top management, starting from the bottom. So, make sure that it is communicated down the line or from lowest level to the highest level, and then you engage all the stakeholders in the process, communicate them, tell them what is ethical, what is not ethical, okay, and also tell them that if any kind of unethical behavior will be treated with exemplary punishment, so that people deter, and also try to show that you are not going to only polish, do some policing to see that they are engaged, whether they are engaged in unethical behavior or not, but you also try to motivate them to be more ethical through culture, and also provide some kind of incentives and support to those who are going to engage in ethical behavior, right. So, whether you can adopt either top down or bottom up approach. Similarly, you can go for code of ethics. Code of ethics is a written statement, okay, a declaration or a written statement of what to do and what not to do. Okay. It is going to be create some kind of motivation and discipline among the people, okay, and make sure that everybody has it, okay, and everybody is communicated about it, okay, and then you see whether people are going to follow it or not. Okay. And then you have a set of questions and ask people to assess themselves using those questions to see whether they understand it or not, okay, whether they are able to evaluate their behavior using these code of ethics to identify whether their behavior is ethical or not ethical in nature. Okay. And this could be a kind of educational experience for them, so that they are able to understand themselves whether they are behaving ethically or not. So, it is very important to have a code of ethics in each organization, and make sure that people are going to voluntarily follow it. You do not force them to do it, otherwise there could be problems. Okay. So, make sure that you have a code of ethics in the organization. Then another issue is related to privacy. Okay. When you are going to work in the organization, you also look at privacy, and privacy is an ethical issue. Okay. Okay. So, you do not like to involve others into your personal spaces at times, right, because suppose you are sending a mail. Okay. Now, whether your email is being monitored or not. So, it could be a privacy issue, right. Now, organization may have a policy not to allow you to use personal mails at the workplace. That could be an email policy, but when it comes to privacy, then you tell them what is to be done, what not to be done, what comes under privacy, what comes under public domain, right. That is very important. For example, there are 4 areas which is related to privacy, that is notice, okay, right to be told in advance, must tell people what is to be done, what is not to be done, and it is their choice whether they want to make it keep it in public domain or not. Similarly, any kind of personal information must not be divulged or put into or displayed into public space for others, right, unless people want it, right. It is very important. Similarly, access of information and whether the correct information has been put into the website or the domain related to the employees, right. Now, whether access and correctness of any personal information is a personal choice of the person, or organization to have allows it to have access by anybody. No, it could be accessed by the administrators, because they are going to feed the data, and it could should be only be accessed by the people who are going to use it. So, it is more ethical approach that is to be followed by the organizations. Another important is security and integrity of the employee, security of the data and integrity of the employee. These are issues. Okay. So, make sure that the data which is confidential, you have security measures for them at the place in the system, and also make sure that integrity of the employee is not at stake, because if integrity is at stake, then you cannot expect them to be ethical in their approach. Similarly, you can use certain enforcement codes, okay, when you can take certain legal actions if you find that any of these principles are being violated by people and they are going to engage in certain unethical behavior. So, these are the issues related to privacy. Now, there are lot of issues which are coming up, which are related to ethical problem, and that is related to technology, right. For example, the traditional rule of conduct are not always to any new medium. Okay. For example, that is given here, a question which arises that should a device, a technique or technology be restricted because people can use it for illegal or harmful actions as well as beneficial actions. You know that for example, take mobile phones with cameras, right. they may take it to the schools, can take photographs, okay, in different conditions and put it in the public domain. Whether it is legal or not, or whether it is ethical to do it or not, that is to be seen. So, it is very very important that how we are going to deal with ethical problems related to the technology. Okay. For example, people or students are coming with mobile phones, okay, in the class and listening songs or playing games or chatting with that. Okay. It is a desirable behavior. It may not be legal, we are not going to ask questions related to legality of this act, but whether it is ethical or desired or not, and that is why you need to decide about the code of conduct depending upon the kind of technology you are going to make use of it. Okay. So, when it comes to use of technology, you have to decide as an organization that what kind of code of conduct is going to be prevalent in the organization, right. That is more correct with so far as IT is concerned. Okay. Especially that lot of ethical challenges have come up when it comes to information technology. Okay. For example, there is no licensing for computer professionals, anybody can use computers. Okay. So, how are we going to enforce ethical standards in the computing field, right. Now, there is a process and the movement that is going on to establish some kind of licensing processes, but there are a lot of issues that need to be resolved before you are going to provide license to computer professionals, because nowadays that everybody is using computers, right. So, if you are going to provide a license for computer use, okay, so that they are going to use it more ethically and legally. Okay. They know the nuances of use, how it is to be used, why it is to be used, and these kind of things. So, if you are going to take a legal action for that, it is not possible. Okay. And then if you want to provide license, then how are you going to provide, whether you are going to take a test for that, okay, and what kind of say requirement would be there for IT professionals to have these kind of licenses. Okay. So, that these kind of things have been developed by many organizations today. Okay. One example that I have given here, that especially the use of computers related to implementation monitoring, there are a lot of code of conducts have been identified by various organizations, which are prevalent in many organizations, and if you go to this link you can find out certain codes for IT professionals, okay, which is to be used by them while working with the computers, right. So, IT has become a major challenge for ethical issues. Okay. There could be issues related to web design related challenges also. For example, if you are going to design a web, so when it comes to implementation, there are a lot of issues related to redirecting, cookies, privacy, security, spyware, pop-ups. Are you going to block pop-ups or allow them? Okay. Whether you have blocking and filtering mechanism in your computers. Okay. Similarly, whether you allow cookies to be there or not. Okay. What would be a privacy plus policy, whether like you have security systems related to login passwords, even to open your computers, right. Nowadays biometric information is being used as a password, okay, that is for security basically. Okay. And then you have a lot of spyware, so you have antiviruses and these kind of things in the system. Okay. Otherwise, your systems might be hacked. So, these all are ethical challenges that is created because of the computers and web design. Okay. Now, a lot of features are being adopted by the IT people to make sure that these issues do not come up, like they use graphics, content, the design layout. They also fix the accountability and responsibility, okay, and they also make sure that outdated and inaccurate materials are not there. Okay, and they are using certain languages to ensure that the design features are correct and it follows all ethical norms of the organization. Then there are other challenges like commerce related challenges. Okay. How are going to detect fraud, okay, transactions fraud, okay, because that online transactions there is a possibility of having fraud. So, you have encrypted security, then how are you going to whether you are going to use it for taxation purposes, for free trades, for gambling, online gambling takes place. Then for auctions also you are going for online now, that most of the organizations have gone for online auctioning today. Then how you have spamming, so that you do not allow access to information at certain restrict information at certain places, like in jails. Okay. You have jammers which does not allow inmates to have access to any kind of information from outside. Okay. So, these kind of things are there. Okay. So, then you know that nowadays even students use as sold assignments. So, you have websites which sell you assignments, okay, whether selling of assignment is ethical in nature or not. So, these are some of the issues, because you know that transaction or money is involved in all these cases. Okay. So, you have to secure that, you have to make sure that when you are going to ensure the confidentiality, privacy and security of the system, make it such so that these kind of unethical concerns are taken care, right. That's all. Okay, thank you. 30 मिनट हो गया ना, ज़्यादा ही हो गया.